All right, so just starting with our check-in round, anything you want to share about your learning journey thus far, totally open. Oh, and welcome, TJ. So we'll amend our order just a little bit. Sky, you'll pass to TJ, and TJ will pass to me. Would someone like to get us started? Remembering leanness of speech so we can get to all the good stuff we have for today.
I can start.
Awesome.
I know there was like a break in sort of the module homework, but I've been reading a book called Rooted, and I wrote down two things last night that I feel like as I experience this more or read about more similar topics, I'll sort of like gather my bits and pieces and find a way to make like my pleasures of presence or my what's in motion kind of more my style. But one thing I wrote down was the phrase add some, and it's Latin for I am here. And I was just like, ooh, I feel like that would be really good in a pleasures of presence sequence. So just still learning, still enjoying the journey. And I'm passing to Patricia.
Good evening. So the lean response is silence is a lot harder than I thought it would be. I think another sort of reaction to things, as I've been trying out the pleasures of presence on people, I also get kind of two distinct responses from folks. Some who are comfortable with the silence and with the kind of slowness of it, and others who are, you can sort of look at them and see their, well, what's next? So where we go from here. And in some respects, I sort of reflect back, maybe that's my monkey mind, sort of passing that along to them, because I know I'm struggling with that silence and that calmness. So I'm going to pass it off to Rachel.
Hi, everybody. I have just been practicing listening to the audio that is on our course, and just spending time with it. And then I have a daily meditation practice, and it's guided, and it's I'm just trying to see what words and phrases and things come to me organically. And with what I'm listening to and what I have listened to. And so I'm really kind of paying attention, like what words will help somebody with their POP practice, and then just coming off of the really wonderful idea of what a guide means to me, and what we talked about on our last class. So yeah, just it's I want to say intimidating, but I'm not rushing into doing a pleasures of a practice, because I feel like I'm still practicing it on my own, and I'm not quite ready to guide somebody else into it yet, because I don't want to force anything. So I'm just kind of noticing what I'm noticing, and seeing what words will have really resonated to me. And there's been little things like I think it was Amos in one of the talks just talked about like what does it feel like before you step over the stream, or like just those kind of like little things that I never would have thought of. So just trying to pay attention to what am I thinking or not thinking about when I'm trying to be present and pay attention and noticing. So that was a whole lot of words. I'm passing to Riche. Can you hear us now, Riche?
I can hear you all now, but I don't know what the prompt was for what are we saying? I'm so
Basically,
sorry, you all.
just leanly checking in about anything in your learning adventure, anything you're thinking about or working on.
Yeah, I think for me, the big thing has been sit spot. I am just falling in love with sit spot, but I know I need to move beyond that and actually do something else. And I'm kind of like you, Rachel. Like I'm kind of thinking like I've been thinking like if I like how will I lead someone into pleasures of presence? Because it seems it's like when I'm doing it and I'm listening to the audio recordings that we have in the training, I absolutely love it. And I'm so immersed in, and then I'm like, wait, like what all did I just do? Because this, I mean, or experience, this is amazing. I hope I can, offer that to someone else. And I know I will, but it's been great so far.
And Rashe, you're gonna pass it to Sky.
Hi. So I've been noticing I'm having challenges settling my brain. The chatter, it's kind of challenging. So I'm still wrapping my head around all of the material and just, I guess, kind of organizing it in my brain so that it becomes more of a natural thought rather than something forced that I'm trying to remember. But it's coming. Yeah, and a lot of what Rachel said kind of resonated with me as well, about finding those right words to describe things or to think of some invitations. But I'm confident that it'll all come, and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm passing to TJ.
Thank you, Sky. For me, well, I think I've been very busy lately. A lot of concerns pulling at me left and right, and that has kind of hindered me from really, I guess, devoting time for this practice. But the times that I tried, I think what I'm finding very quite hard is just having the discipline to just be in the moment. For example, when I try to do a sit spot, especially when it's somewhere close to my house or at the park near in the city, I find it very hard to like discipline myself to be in that forest bathing state of mind. I do guide people occasionally, and then I'm learning that having a guide is really valuable, because if I'm just on my own, it's quite tricky. A lot of times I end up on my phone or just being distracted by talking to people and whatnot. So I'm struggling with that, and I hope that, and I do know that it's really a practice. Like I'm understanding that word being a practice. Like before, I already knew that mindfulness is a practice. I didn't really understand what that meant, but now that I'm into this forest bathing, forest therapy, I'm learning what it means if something is a practice. That's it for me. Thank you. I'll pass to Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've been around and around with this course so many times, and it's like always new and different. And this week I've been reading this book about somatic healing and healing the nervous system. And it's really kind of like blowing my mind about like your body has this animal intelligence and it's trying to keep you safe, and all these sympathetic and parasympathetic responses to the perception of danger are your body trying to keep you safe, even when the mind knows that you're safe. And so kind of leaning into a deeper exploration of my nervous system and noticing when I'm feeling safe and not safe, like not from up here, but from in my body. And then finding it really surprising that a lot of times I'm in a situation where it is safe, but my body is not registering safety. So yeah, that's been really a lot. I'm going to pass it to Lynn to weave Lynn in, and Lynn, you're going to pass it to Brooks. You have to, there you go.
Yep. Sorry, I was a little bit late. I have been noticing how much more slowly I am moving through nature, and how I'm able to pause and really focusing on my senses as opposed to breathing. And I think when I'm writing my pleasures of presence, you know, one of the things I think I will tell people, but I welcome your input, Ben, and anyone else's, as to whether this is a bad thing, is saying specifically what we're not going to do. Like, we're not going to be a psychologist and fix you, but also that we're not going to tell you to focus on your breathing. We're not going to tell you to like let the clouds drift away as your thoughts, but it's more about noticing how this space is speaking to your body and the relationship with your body and your insides. And that's something that's really just beginning to become more real for me. So that's where I have been in the last week, and I will pass to Brooks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about language as well. So as Rachel mentioned and Sky said she also resonated with, just how to most effectively use language as a tool to help guide someone in these invitations. So that's something I've been thinking a lot about. And then something, I guess, more personal, but definitely touches on things we've talked about. Still working on letting go of that need for perfection. Started a pottery class last night, and I am not immediately good at something I have never done, which, wow, shocking. But just excited for that journey and thinking about how those things sort of show up in everything. So yeah, I am passing to Christy.
Thank you. I really liked the POF assignment of sitting down and actually writing out how we would do that and what we would say. And I found myself, honestly, with all the assignments, I've struggled with. There's even suggestions in the assignments of them not being perfect, not being, refined. Also, there's no real due dates, which is a struggle for me because I bounce between knowing everything isn't late and feeling that everything is late because we're moving through the modules, and that's just an infinite number of years of standard academia that I'm trying to unlearn. So that's been sort of interesting, where I have to keep reminding myself that it's all just fine and that it's not sort of being looked at in the same way I'm used to submitting things. Yeah, I think the other part of it for me is that I find that I'm trying to make time for this, and stuff keeps coming up, which is what happens. But then when I do get to make time for it, I'm I'm more inclined to keep doing this and not want to do, I don't know, my real work or whatever else I have to do because I get so into it. So that's also really nice. And I'm passing to Elizabeth.
Hi guys. So in the last week I've been really immersing myself into the way of the guide, this philosophy, which for me is has been transformative, reflecting on what I have valued and realizing what my culture has valued in terms of what a leader, right, looks like, and flipping that for me like on its head completely. But it has been so incredible. And I lead a women's group every Friday, and I took the women to this park on this last Friday, and I practice my pleasure of presence on them. And it's really interesting, Patricia, what you said, which was, you notice like two different kind of responses. And I had a similar kind of noticing with my group. But for the first time since I've been doing this work, I took none of that on myself. I just said and thought and felt that this was their experience, and what is meant to happen is happening right now, and nature will facilitate the experience that they're meant to have. And it was so liberating. So I'm really, to say that I'm loving this course is such an understatement. Like it's like, I feel like it's kind of transforming me in a positive way. I am passing to Heidi.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That was so lovely to hear. I have not done the work for Module 3 and am looking forward to diving in deep this week. This past weekend, I was up in some lovely property in Michigan, Bitely, Michigan, specifically the home of the Odawa people. And it's along a beautiful river, the Jock Marquette River. And there was an invitation for a labyrinth walk. So my intention moving in was to let go of any internal voices that say I won't have the right words or know how to hold the container for all of the members that participate in future guidings that I lead or experiences. And it was just a wonderful experience to release any of that. It felt like a ton of freedom. And again, just being in nature, seeing the stars at night on the silent walk. For myself, I don't think it's a problem since it's become a pretty regular practice. And then notice things, I like having the language around that. So thank you for immersing us with that. And I look forward to more. I'm very excited. I am passing it on to Holly.
Hello. Nice to see everyone. So I've actually been thinking about how I embody nature when I'm walking and how to put those into words so other people can get into their body. That's, I think, one of the things I'm having a little bit of a tough time with, because I know how I feel and I know, how I open myself up to nature, but trying to convey that to others, I'm still trying to acquaint myself. So I guess it's similar to what many have said about language and creating that space where people can like take that language and use it to get into their body. And I found my sit spot at work. And this is very exciting. And there's been a big big interest at my work for forest therapy, guiding, and like going on a walk. So that was something that was very exciting to me. And I will pass it to Jacqueline.
Thanks, Holly. This week, I think one of the things that I enjoyed most was the concept of the web of interbeing. And as I was watching the video, and having him, describing the relationship with the rock and what is the relationship of the rock to me and to me to it, I thought that was really interesting. And as I was thinking about that, I started to have this kind of image in my mind kind of unfolding about all the different things that I might do a web of interbeing on, and how that might be expressed through color and images. And so that was just like a big explosion of creativity for me, which is nice because I've been a bit stifled over the last few years with creativity at work, just kind of being burned out a bit. So I really enjoyed that and having that kind of creativity being produced. So that was a really fun concept for me. And I'm gonna pass it to Jane T.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Hi everybody. So for me, I think one of the video I watched about what the stories mean in the context of forest therapy really touched me, and kind of I thought it was a very kind way to describe different viewpoint and help me expand my horizon, I think. And also a few years ago, I realized how little body awareness I have. And I've been working on this somatic awareness, but and meditation for like the past few years, but I had a hard time making progress. But doing descriptive POP really helping me to trust my body, and we talk about the trust a lot in many different ways. I think all of the exercise we are doing is really help to achieve trust in a felt sense, not in a logical way. And I started to see a glimpse of it in myself, and I'm really looking forward to see how this goes further. So I think I'm passing to Juju.
Thanks, Jane. Hi, everybody. I think the thing that is mostly coming up for me is just like, I don't know, like contextual difficulties here. Like I visited family home in Vermont last week and was out in the woods there. And I think I actually talked to some people who were in this pod about some things that I've been thinking about with regards to kind of different nature contexts. And like it was so easy and natural for me to feel so safe and embodied in like the forests of Vermont. And then I came back to Brooklyn and am just like really struggling with the sit spot, feeling just like increasingly aggravated by all the noise pollution and like noticing so many different aspects that are like non-ideal, but I know like I would like to, I'm frustrated with myself because I want to be accepting of the way that, we've shaped the natural world and like make the most of it in this setting, this very urban context. But that's feeling difficult. So I think for me, like establishing my own practice is currently a challenge. Whereas in other contexts, like I have like a flourishing nature practice. And I think walking, I find a lot easier, but like the sitting in this, like the little woodland in the park near my apartment is just like not very pleasant, to be honest. So yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about. Yeah. So I'm passing to Kat.
and Kat started, so that brings us full circle. Wow. First of all, it's really nice having the small group and really seeing you all and hearing you all. And yeah, there's a lot of challenges in this process, and I know some of you have some questions, and I just want to encourage you to really live the questions, which is super frustrating as a student to be told that by the teacher. I'm currently taking a course as a student, and that is happening to me constantly. And I'm noticing how frustrated I am as a student, being like, I want you to explain how this works right now. And they're like, it wouldn't help you. Like, you kind of just have to live into the question and let it unfold and trust this process. And I notice that I hate that. So I'm feeling so much compassion for all of my students. And yeah, I just want to let you know it's very normal and you are not alone in that. The other thing I just wanted to say as like a blanket comment is what you're learning here actually is a very creative process. It's not just like, here are the steps, just do them. It requires a lot of sensitivity and then the ability to express creatively through that sensitivity. So like with all creative work, some of you may know there's a guy named Seth Godin who writes books about creative process, and he has this thing about just ship it, which means like, don't try to make it perfect, just do it. And you know, you're not getting graded. You're gonna get feedback if something is like, wow, maybe you should think about this or whatever, but don't worry about it being good or perfect. Like, just sit down and give yourself some grace to do it. So let's dive into Way of the Guide a little bit deeper. First, I thought I would just ask you all, based on the presentation last week and the readings and your own reflection, what do you think it means to be a guide? This is a little bit of me asking you to just kind of recap, like, what are we talking about here? So if you want to use the chat box or you want to unmute and share verbally.
It's Lynn. For me, it's I really resonate with the words that were used about creating the container or with the forest being the creating a safe space for people to embody and experience and explore the best of who they can be in that moment, and to be open to that, and to create a place where they feel safety and trust, but in partnership, like knowing that the forest will do the work. So just trying to create the kind of the ambiance in which that can take place.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like with this course, it's like we can't really make a totally safe space, but we can make a brave space. And for me, maybe it's not that they're trying to be the best version of themselves, but trying to really be authentically themselves. And that's where the brave space is really a container of vulnerability and courage. But yes. Let's see, we got something in the chat. Pat means to step aside or step back and allow the forest to do the therapy. Right, yeah, that's really the hard part, just getting out of the way. And Elizabeth, creating the space and then holding it for others to experience a relationship with nature, whatever that means for them, zero judgment. Right. Yeah, Rashay.
Hey, yes, I was kind of, when I think about like what it means to be a guide, and I was thinking about that this week, especially as I kind of delved into module 4, and I feel like I kind of saw, I don't know, when I kind of saw the standard sequence at a glance, it just all made more sense to me. But I feel like I know for me, when we went on our first forest therapy walk with Tam and then with you, it's like in the tame world, I guess, or our normal lives, we're so busy that sometimes, like, at least for me, like I truly just didn't know how to slow down sometimes. And even at times when I thought I was really slowing down and being present, I actually wasn't. And so when I think about a guide, I think about a guide kind of allowing this beautiful space and kind of shepherding people into just a space where they can first, get kind of grounding activities so that they are, we're really noticing our senses. I think a lot of us, at least for me, I don't think about that throughout the busy day or even weeks or months sometimes. And then what are you noticing or what's moving? Just really kind of getting a person into the practice of just physically just slowing down. And then, of course, with the other activities in the liminal space, really helping them to just have whatever kind of connection and interaction they're going to have with the forest and whatever that's going to speak to them, and just kind of allowing that space. Because I think most of us in our hustle culture, you don't even realize that's available sometimes. So.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of modeling, right? But it's just like, yeah, I'm going to move slowly and you're going to see that that's a possibility, and maybe you'll lean into that and just, yeah, creating that space. And I was at Burning Man one year and I told some guy about what I do, and he was like, oh, you're a permissionary. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I'm a permissionary.
I like that.
So yeah, just giving permission for people to be in whatever way they want without any judgment about it. Let's see, we got Sky. Being a guide is letting go, trust the process, and create the space for people to have their own experience. Yes. Brooks, a supportive facilitator. Yes. Rachel, then Juju.
Just like thinking about like what a guide looks like or has looked like. I've had the title of like hiking and adventure guide for like summer camp kids, and or like a nature guide, like a naturalist guide, and they walk in front of you like the guide has been here before, done this before, has like more knowledge than you. But in our context, it's like the guide is our way of guiding this, like opening doors, is we're more of like a partner, like we're walking like side by side, and we're like I love that that a permissionary, like we're like a co-noticer, like I'm going to like I've been paying attention for maybe a little bit longer, and I'm paying attention to how I'm paying attention, and I'm going to offer that, and we're going to pay attention together. And it's like a side-by-side thing, like this co-noticing. I like that, doing things with somebody, instead of pointing at it and be like, oh, look at this, noticing with them.
Right. Yeah, Juju, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I like what we were talking about kind of last week with the concept of like embracing the mystery of the process, and how I think for me that comes down to like letting go of control and accepting that people are going to have their own process, and that there's like a beauty and like maybe even like a sense of wonder that can be taken from this mystery, and how each person's going to engage with their own bodies or tap into different senses, and how everything's going to unfold for them. So yeah, and also I think for as a guide to be comfortable with the mystery, I feel like that seems like a really important part of the role, so that other people can be comfortable with that unknowing as well, like that lack of being really certain of how things are going to go, but like being comfortable with that, and like trusting that as a guide so that other people can do the same.
Right. Yeah. How many of you feel like having control makes you feel safe?
For sure, at moments. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really like maybe the hardest part, this whole thing. It's just kind of coming to terms with not being in control and being okay with whatever is going to come out of the process, even if at times you don't feel personally satisfied by it. If you guide a bunch of walks, I mean, maybe you'll even experience this in the 4 walks you guide for this course. You might have one walk that at the end, you just feel like, wow, that was so amazing. And the participants just had these like really powerful experiences, and that was so great. And then in contrast, you might have a walk where you feel like, I mean, it was fine. Like we had a nice time, but no one like cried or had a big revelation about themselves or, you know, had like a big moment. And I think we tend to kind of want those big moments for people. Like that makes us feel like this was worth it and this worked. And then kind of learning to see the beauty of the small experiences really makes letting go of control a lot easier. Where sometimes people, like at the end, I did this walk once where I had 3 people and we're at our final circle. So what do you want to share to feel complete? And the first person is talking about all this spiritual stuff and, you know, big stuff. And the second person also very emotional, really deep emotional process. And the third person basically just said, like, I just really need to be outside more. And it's like seeing these things as having equal value as opposed to creating a hierarchy of outcome and saying like, well, these people really got something good out of it. And this person kind of didn't. Like it was like a shallow experience for them, but not knowing the context of these sharings, like the 2 people in the beginning, like they do a lot of spiritual work and this is kind of normal for them. And this last person, it was like a really big moment. It seemed simple, but it was maybe the biggest of the experiences that was happening. So yeah. TJ, there's a lot of anxiety with just trusting nature to do the work. So many uncontrollable variables. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just don't know. And it's not just the nature that has the uncontrollable variables, it's also the participants that like, we might all see the same something, you know, we might all see the same, let's say, tree. And for some people, it's a tree. And for some people, it reminds them of their grandmother. And for some people, it reminds them of death. And for some people, it reminds them of, you know, heartbreak or whatever it is. Like each person has their own kind of frame through which they experience the same sensations and experiences. So yeah, there's no way to control the process really. Juju, and we're not working with pure nature in a lot of contexts as well, right? Well, I don't know, not to get too zen on it, but it's like, yeah, maybe it's all nature. Maybe it's just transfigured. Okay, Rashay, last one, and then we'll move into something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I actually feel a lot of relief, knowing that I don't like the way of the guide is not to control anything really. I feel like for me personally, if I felt like they had to have this certain type of experience or something really big and epic, I would feel under so much pressure. And if they didn't, I would feel disappointed. I would feel like I need to give them their money back if they paid. It kind of, I guess for me, it kind of reminds me. So I worked as a hospice social worker for 14 years. And when I first started, I remember having so much anxiety of, oh my gosh, I'm supporting this family and this client through their journey. What if like they have a bad death, or what if like things don't, like what if there's not peace and resolution and all the things you think about that maybe are coming up for people at end of life. And I remember probably the first year in thinking, I don't know if I'm going to continue to do end of life care. This is so much anxiety. It feels like so much pressure and you only get one shot at it. Right. And then I learned about companioning theory. It's like an end of life theory from Dr. Alan Welfelt. And it kind of reminds me of the way of the guide. We're companioning people. We're not dictating. We're not pushing. We're not pulling. We're really just kind of bearing witness to their experience. And like, anyway, just kind of made me think about that, and that whatever their experience is exactly probably how it should be. And I'm not putting judgment on it. So for me, that's been so freeing, and it let me, it's just, I'm excited. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say the same thing, that if we come from roles where there is an expectation of outcome, guiding feels like such a relief. Thank goodness. All right, and Heidi, it's withwardness, walking alongside others who have had an invitation to experience liminality and feel heard through daring to be brave and vulnerable, accepting all responses with an open mind. Yeah, beautiful. Y'all are getting it. I don't even need to be here. All right, so recapping just 3 core concepts. This is just for me. Maybe it'll be helpful for you. The first one is a sense of humility. We've kind of covered this, but it's not about you. We're so used to thinking that it's on us and it's about us and we're the person that makes the magic happen. And sometimes at the end people will feel like you were the magic thing, but really it's just the forest making the magic happen. You're just kind of holding that space for people, and you don't have to be impressive. I think that's one of the weird counter-cultural pieces of this style of leadership is you're not trying to impress people. It's just being okay with the simplicity of this form. The second is this sense of openness. Anything is possible in this container. And it all has like a potential for healing. So, there's some walks where it just gets so silly. Like I've guided walks where all of a sudden it's just like everyone's cracking jokes and laughing and playing and it's real silly. And then there's walks where it's kind of like dark and we're talking about trauma and we're talking about really personal, challenging stuff. And sometimes those 2 vibes coexist within the same container. And some people are having this kind of journey and some people are having that kind of journey, but these are all authentic experiences and they have some sort of healing potential for people. So just being open to letting it be what it is. And then, Heidi, I'm just going to mute you, okay? And then this third piece is this practice is kind of like planting seeds in people's hearts. And at the end of the walk, you might not really see what's growing out of that soil. So that's also part of building our confidence and that, we are doing good work. Even at the end of it, sometimes people are like, whatever, like, I guess that was cool. A lot of times people don't even understand how much this can affect them until maybe the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. So I would encourage you not to evaluate your performance or the efficacy of the form based on what happens at the end, because it's kind of just that beginning. So for this next part, does everyone have access to a piece of paper and a pen? Or if not, you could use a computer or, yeah. Okay, so we're just gonna do a quick little journaling exercise. So first, I just want y'all to split your piece of paper into 2 columns, all right? And on the left column, we're going to write down all the things that we hope are going to happen on our walk. And let's just be honest with ourselves. It's okay. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds. Try not to think too hard. All right, wrapping up that last thought. And now on the other side, just journaling out all the things you hope do not happen. And we're going to leave aside any medical stuff. So I hope no one breaks their leg. I hope no one, has a brain aneurysm. Let's leave all that stuff aside. Just other than that kind of stuff, what do you hope doesn't happen on your walks? All right, wrapping up that thought. So this piece of paper now contains what you might consider to be your attachments to certain outcomes. And I'm not going to ask you to share them here and now, but I'd like you to just save this piece of paper for later in the course. Maybe you want to put it in like a journal, if you have a journal you're going to work on through this course, or maybe you want to put it in an envelope and just like date the outside of it for like, when I start guiding my walks, come back to this. And just use this to kind of track how these attachments feel. Like, we have this thing about when you're holding something really tightly, it's exhausting, right? You can only really clench your fist for so long, and then you can all do this with me. Just hold up your hand like this and really like squeeze it tightly. And now just relax your hand and just notice what it feels like. Just what's the difference between holding on to something really tightly and the feeling of just letting it go. And so as you guide, you can kind of work with this of just noticing when you're dealing with these attachments to outcome. And it's really just this kind of constant process of, you'll probably hear me in your head, like, just relax. Just let go. It's okay. So now we're going to do a little bit of scenario work. So I'm going to read you a scenario. You're going to imagine you're the guide. And the first thing I want you to do is just, as I read it, just notice in your body how it feels to imagine yourself there. Just notice if, as you imagine yourself in this situation, does this make you feel tense or does this make you feel relaxed? So, okay, first one. You're guiding pleasures of presence, and halfway through, someone just starts laughing. Does that make anyone feel tense? Maybe a little bit. Maybe we're wondering, like, is this person laughing at me? Is this person laughing at this because she thinks it's really dumb? Why is she laughing? What's going on? Now, okay, now I'll ask y'all, what can you do here as the guide? What are your options? and which of those options feels like it aligns into the way of the guide.
Just continue on.
Yeah, that works. Accept it and hold space for it, right?
But on the other hand, this is Lynn, you don't want it to be disruptive to other people. So I think
I mean,
really,
if it happens, is there any way you can make it not disruptive?
no, but helping to, or listening for how to keep it from perpetuating, I guess, is something I would be open to experiencing.
So like what could you do to by not perpetuating it, do you mean make it stop?
No, because I want that is that person's experience, but they are part of a collective. And if the experience I sensed or noticed that the experience is disruptive to others, then I'm wondering what's the best step in that circumstance.
Right, that's exactly the question. What is the next step?
I think eventually we'd hopefully be comfortable enough to adapt our pleasures of presence to like exactly what is happening. So if it was something that like a laugh that is like really disruptive, like people can't hear you anymore or something,
Right.
that maybe we would, our next phrase might be something like okay, and let's like quiet our voices, or something that is kind of a like, oh, this is going to be a new prompt that hopefully addresses what's going on without anybody feeling like, oh, I laughed too loud, oh god, like now I'm tense as a participant.
Right. I think that's really what we're driving at here is, does calling attention to it help or hurt the process of the person experiencing it?
I think overall it would hurt, nobody likes to be called out. So if there's a way to sort of seamlessly work an instruction in that, like, I guess pulls the pop back more to where you want it, or you could lean into it and say like, yeah, and now like let's have everybody do a giggle.
Yeah, I mean, laughter is a somatic release in the same way that crying or shaking is a somatic release. So, I mean, you could lean into it and invite people into a little giggle or a little laughter. That's basically what Pat is asking. Can you include it in the pop? You can also just allow it. It's just making that space and then allowing the person to come back to self-regulation. Okay, Elizabeth, then Juju.
Yeah, that was my thought, just like allowing it. And also I'm trying to move away from viewing the group as many individuals, and it's a collective, right? Like we're sharing a space and we're energy together, and that just becomes part of the collective. And then new and maybe different experiences will come from that, and allowing that to happen, knowing that that's what was meant to happen in that moment.
Right. Juju, you want to add something?
Yeah, just I feel like there could be room to just like add an invitation to invite everyone to embrace whatever emotions are coming up for them, kind of something that's like kind of vague enough, but also like it makes room for that as like, and everything's acceptable here, and kind of also like, if the person wants to kind of start to self-regulate, that it like gives them, some like a smooth pathway into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think pop is really not about drawing attention to the emotional experience. If you think about the chakra system, it's the base. It's just about the connection to earth and body and not getting into that second chakra piece about the emotional experience. So what you could perhaps do is say something like, you know, if your body wants to make a sound right now, just allow that sound to emerge, whatever it might be. And then it's because, yeah, it's also this thing about like, for me, I don't like to prescribe what people are doing from that somatic emotional place, like saying like, let's all laugh. If I'm like in pop and I'm feeling like grief and the facilitator's like, all right, let's all laugh, then I'm like, this is so dissonant for me. But if you say, you know, if your body wants to make a sound, just allow that sound to emerge. And then maybe it's just like a, right? So this is where we get into the connection between way of the guide and the language of invitation, that it's like, how do we create the possibility for everyone to express in an authentic way without allowing one experience to dominate all the others? Okay, Rachel and then Christy, real quick if we can make it so we can get into some other ones.
Yeah, I was just so in the POP, like if we're if there's enough flexibility to like when if you're hearing something, like if you hear like geese or something, you could draw attention to like what we're hearing. So if there's like laughter or snoring or crying or something, like everybody's gonna hear it. So I would feel awkward like not saying something, but I like that, like allowing, like if you're feeling like making a sound right now, you know, whatever that sound could be. So some kind of directional to allow it, you know, whatever noise anybody's making, because I feel like like not saying anything would be almost like ignoring it. Like, you know, if somebody's snoring during meditation, like, you know, you were trying to incorporate like all of the sounds into the experience. So yeah, I appreciate saying if your body wants to make a sound or something along those lines. So like allowing it.
I mean, I don't know if you need to like, I mean, you can rearrange all the prompts in pop however you like, but just because something is happening doesn't mean it has to be the focus of the attention immediately. If you haven't done the thing about sound yet, that snoring might be there. The other counterpoint to this is another scenario where someone farts very loudly during pop, and I would never call attention to it because it's probably going to make them feel a lot of shame. And it is much better to ignore it, to just continue moving through as if nothing has happened, because to call any attention to it is going to just really be damaging to this person's ability to stay present. Okay, Christy, and then we'll move on.
I just wanted to say quickly that in other sort of group settings that I've facilitated things in, I find that if somebody is being extremely disruptive or inappropriate or harmful to the group, chances are the group will police them.
Yeah.
But I've not even got a chance to address people before when other people in the group have turned around and said, you can stop that now. Like nobody wants to hear that. So there's that sort of dynamic too. If the group polices itself, we can move on, but also it could start a whole chain reaction of a different dynamic within the group.
Yeah. So I've done like hundreds and hundreds of walks and never had anything happen where people felt so bothered they had to say something. Generally, unless you're guiding a group where people like really don't want to be there, like if this is like some sort of punishment forest therapy walk for them, then yeah, no, maybe you'll have something like that. But then that becomes actually not something for pop. That becomes a discussion for the introduction and really figuring out how you're going to work with this group and where your boundaries are and what is acceptable and what is not. And if you're feeling like that is a possibility, then maybe you're editing your introduction to include different notes about like, if you're feeling like you can't be here, please walk away and join us when you're feeling ready to come back. right? So it's like that introduction is really creating this container and giving people like a collective understanding of how this is going to work. But for general walks, like, yeah, never had a problem with this. Okay, I want to hit a few more scenarios. So, okay, during pop, a dog runs into your circle and begins licking people's knees.
Yay!
Okay, so first, like, does anyone feel tense about this? Makes me feel a little tense. Makes me feel tense because I don't know if people are afraid of dogs.
Yeah.
Right? So what are your options here?
Well, whose dog is it?
It's some random dog. It's no one's
Just
dog.
a random dog in the woods?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Like it's like some guy is walking by with his dog and the dog is not on a leash and just goes for it.
Yeah, and that
Your
and that
dog now.
yeah, well, we don't know how friendly the dog is, even though he's licking knees.
Right.
But if the supposed owner of the dog is close by, I'm assuming that they would come in and, you know, maybe hopefully grab the dog, but if not, I guess we'd have to temporarily pause in order to kind of move the dog along.
Right.
Or include the dog in the pop. I don't know.
So yeah, for me, it's like, this is like live theater. There's no stopping the show. It's just like figuring out how to keep playing the game. And then being sensitive enough to understand, like, this is a little bit different than the person laughing because someone might really have a big fear response about the dog. So, you know, if everyone's eyes are closed, maybe the next prompt is just like, let's notice if there's any animals in this circle and let's just see them. And then as the guide, maybe I'm the one that's like pulling the dog into me and like giving it some love and then helping it get back to the owner. So that's like, there's like these shades of gray of what we mean by just letting it go or letting it ride, like thinking about responsibility, thinking about people's edges and fears, thinking about how can I keep going with this without it being like, hold on, pause, just letting it be incorporated somehow, but not kind of like shutting down the entire pop. Now, likewise, you're facilitating pop and all of a sudden you hear a chainsaw just revving. How does this make you feel? Yeah, Elizabeth.
Sorry, and I'm not trying to command the conversation. So if anybody else wants to jump ahead of me, feel free. But this actually happened to me on Friday. So I'm facilitating my pop and a weed whacker starts up in like the next property over. And I just like, I allowed it because what else was I going to do? I wasn't going to like go talk to the property owner and I wasn't, you know, I wanted them to stay in their process. And one of the participants at the end shared that because of that sound, it took her back to her childhood and her, like the property that she grew up on. And it reminded her of her father who would like take care of the land. And it ended up being positive for her. So I thought that was really interesting because I found it intrusive, but for her, it brought her to a different place.
Yeah. Christy. Oh, you had your hand up from last time?
I guess I did, but that is immediately what I thought of when you said chainsaw, is that's a winter time at home experience for me.
I had a walk where there was a chainsaw and someone at the end, I mean, there were a lot of tears, but the person said basically like, I felt like I was a tree listening to that. And like, I've never really felt a sense of fear and terror on behalf of a tree like that before. And I've heard a chainsaw a million times. And so, yeah, it's like, we tend to have these biases against certain phenomena, sensation, like, oh, this isn't good. Like, this isn't what it's supposed to be. and then cast through the prism of consciousness, we don't know like what's going to happen here. And really, like anything can come in and be a part of the experience. Okay, let's say you're doing tea ceremony and you explain what the tea is and you serve it, and one person says, I'm not going to drink that. Yeah, Heidi. You're muted.
Thanks. I would say, okay, that's your choice.
Right. And so that's good. Like level one way of the guide is like, yes, autonomy, this is your choice. And then maybe taking it a step further, I could offer you some water, right? I think about like finding ways to create a radical sense of inclusion are also part of way of the guide, where it's like, the last cohort I had, a woman had made like cinnamon tea, and one of the participants on one of her walks was allergic to cinnamon. And so she basically opted out of tea ceremony. I asked her later, like, well, did you have extra water, just like hot water? Oh yeah, like, okay, well, why not just offer her hot water, right? Or you give her the cup and you're like, you can serve it to the land. You don't have to drink it, right? So it's like finding these ways of creating inclusion without saying, for me, it's not about opting in or opting out. It's about creating possibilities so that people never have to opt out. They can always play the game. You're supporting them and figuring out how they can play it if they run into an edge and they're like, I cannot do that. All right, let's try another one.
Am I hearing you say that you give them an additional choice? Like, it's almost like I'm hearing you, what I feel like I'm hearing you say is you offer a new creative way to create a new choice.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. It's the same way that an invitation is not framed as you can either do the invitation or not do the invitation. It's framed as here's the invitation, and if you want to do anything else, you're still doing forest therapy, right? It's not like you either do the invitation and you're in the experience, or you don't do the invitation and you're out. It's like for the next 3 hours, whatever we're doing is forest therapy. Just like the story I told you about the phone call last week, right? Like, okay, you're on a walk and a participant just takes a phone call and you're like, like they're supposed to be connecting to nature. This isn't right. And it's like, no, this is their choice. This is their time. And I don't know what they're talking about. And maybe it's really important or it's really healing. And it's like, you're doing forest therapy. It looks weird and it's not what I invited you to do, but it's great. Like, affirming that people can do whatever they need to do. Okay, you have a 6-year-old on the walk and she comes back from, like you finish your circle and she says, I want to offer the next invitation. Does this make anyone feel tense? Y'all are so chill. Okay, so what are you gonna do?
I might ask her to whisper it in my ear first.
Why?
Good idea.
Just to kind of maintain control of the group and not because I'm sure she has a wonderful invitation, but I'd want to hear it first before it's offered to the whole group.
Yeah, I mean, this has happened to me a few times, and what I like to do is maybe a more subtle navigation of that, where it's like, why don't you tell us what your invitation is? And then if it's great, and 6-year-olds are often really good at making invitations. It's like, let's touch all the different kinds of trees. You're like, great, let's do it. If it's like something dangerous or edgy or like really outside of scope of practice, then it's like a modification. So it's like improv, you know, it's that thing about never negating someone. So instead of like, no, we're not doing that, it's like, yes, and how about we do this? So then it's like, yeah, like we're co-facilitating this experience. It's not that I'm like in control, right?
And you could also, if they spoke their invitation, what it would be, you could validate that and then say, and another way to look at it would be, articulating it this way.
Right. Right.
Just using different words
Right.
that might or might not be better.
Right. So it's like this whole way of the guide thing. It's like there's a lot happening in the field, and the participants and the more than human world are essentially making the rules of the game, and your job is to figure out how to keep playing the game. For those of you that are into game theory, there's something called finite games, which are games that have a winner and a loser, and they end, and the ending is figuring out who wins and who loses. And then there are infinite games where there are no winners or losers. It's a collaborative effort to figure out how to continue playing the game. Relationships, interestingly, are all infinite games. You can't win a relationship or lose. The point is to keep playing and to figure out how to keep playing. So whatever is happening, it's your job as the guide to figure out how to keep playing the game and not just say like, it's over. Like I can't figure out how to do this. It's again like that live theater thing. What if the 6-year-old wants to offer another and another invitation throughout the walk? I could see this happen, especially if there are several different kids on the walk. Hey, as long as they're good invitations, let it ride. Like, yeah, if it works, it works. This one about the 6-year-old is really drawing attention to our attachment to doing what we want to do on the walk, right? Oh, I really wanted to do this invitation, or I really want them to do sit spot, da 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 da. It's like, that's our internal resistance to the reality that is unfolding within the container. So this is where we really struggle with like, okay, I need to let go of this plan. It's not working. What can we do? All right, Juju, real quick, and then I just have a couple more things to wrap this up.
Yeah, I really love the idea of people kind of being inspired by what others are doing on the walk, aside from just me being like the sole person in control. Like the first forest therapy walk I ever went on, someone like took their shoes off. And so then like I was inspired to take my shoes off, and then suddenly we were all walking like in the mud together. And that wasn't something that the guide said. That was just something that like, and no one said anything. It was just like we were kind of all just like together building this kind of experience as a collective. So yeah, I mean the kids, wanting to like, have fun and be quirky and silly is one thing. Or it could be like a, really inspiring kind of addition. But I like that idea that like it's a collaboration between the guide and everyone involved, and everyone could be kind of inspired by each other.
Right. And people are not going to often try to hijack your walk. It happens sometimes, and that's okay, but you're not fighting it when it happens. I had a walk where I took people to where I thought we were going to go, and then there was like a massive installation at the park, and I had to go somewhere else. And I landed at this place that was just filled with mosquitoes. I start doing pop. I'm getting eaten alive. I know everyone else is getting eaten alive, but I'm in it, And so we get to the end. What do you want to share? Or what are you noticing right now? And this person says, I notice that I'm getting eaten alive, and my wife and I are leaving right now. And so my response is, thank you so much for coming. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Next person. I also notice I'm getting eaten alive, so my wife and I are also leaving. Okay, thank you so much for coming. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Does anyone else want to share? And then people share, da, 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 da. And then I say, so I'm noticing there are a lot of mosquitoes here. So for our next invitation, What's in Motion, we're going to be moving out of this area. But I'm not begging them to stay. I'm not making promises about, oh, like it'll get better, I promise. Because I can't promise that. I don't know what's about to happen. I'm not going to try to convince you to stay. I'm not going to try to make promises about what your experience will be like. I'm just creating this space, and you have the freedom to choose. And it's just that. And sometimes I know new guides get really upset if someone leaves their walk. They're like, oh, it must not have been a good walk, or they didn't like what I was doing or whatever. And it's like, just let go. Just let go of all that. Just let people be. Okay, so we have 3.5 minutes left. Where to draw the line? I touched on this last time, but if someone is behaving in such a way that all the attention and focus is constantly moving towards them, that's for me where the line is. It's only happened once for me in all my walks. And if that's happening, and it's not just for a moment, like it's okay for it to happen for a moment, maybe even a few moments. But if it's this chronic state of someone distracting the entire group and sucking all the attention towards them, then you just have to have a conversation with them. And, you know, we try to do it gently. But it's okay to say to someone, you know, look, the way that you're showing up right now is really distracting to everyone. And I'd love for you to stay, but if you want to stay, I really need you to find a way to be here in a way that isn't pulling all the attention towards you. And those people usually are just going to leave. That was my one experience. The person just immediately left because they're not used to being confronted in that way. And it's really kind of triggering for them. But that line is really, really high. Like I said, I've got like 500 walks or something. It's only ever happened once. So if you're questioning it, maybe just fall back for a minute, you know, just really see if it happens invitation after invitation. Maybe they're just like settling. But you'll know like, you know, in your body when it's like, okay, this really has to happen because nothing is possible. There is no embodiment when everyone is just distracted all the time by this person. But generally people aren't going to show up like that. To be honest with you, I should have caught it during hospitality because the way this person showed up was like, I didn't know as much as I do now about trauma, but this person showed up and I should have known that there was a lot of trauma and that this wasn't a good space for her. Anyway, lastly, this whole way of the guide thing really is an exercise in trust. And that's where it's hard because I think this imprints from our parents, where that's kind of our like primal leadership model of authority is like, you are not trustworthy. I am going to make sure you become a good person. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make that happen. And then we also experience that with our teachers and our religious leaders and our counselors and all sorts of different leadership people where the assumption is that you know and I don't know how to do this. So I need to trust you to show me how to do it. Fundamentally, we have to come from a place of saying, I trust you to know. I trust your body to know. You were born with this. Everyone has it. I'm not teaching you anything new. I'm helping you remember what you were born with. And when we can do that, this whole thing gets much, much, much easier. And when we can trust the forest to really deliver that, it gets even easier. All right. So we're going to close the breakout rooms. And then we're going to have a few minutes to check out. Thank you for your attention. And we can just like take a breath and hold for 19 seconds. And then I'll ask people what they want to reflect to feel complete today.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, of course. Give yourself a little shake. Been doing that a lot lately. Good to get out of the freeze response.
One quick question. What's the name of the book you're reading?
It's called The Call of the Wild. And it's not the Call of the Wild that you read in high school.
Hey.
Hey, all right, welcome back, everyone. Heidi, I'll drop the name of the book in the chat. So we have a few minutes left. I don't think we have time for everyone to share, but if anyone would like to share just what are you noticing? What do you want to say to feel complete tonight? You can drop it in the chat or you can unmute and then we will say good morning, good afternoon, good night.
Just want to say thanks for everyone being like vulnerable within the space and sharing their honesty about apprehensions or gratitudes. It's really great hearing some of your stories.
Nina, I had a question. How do you handle feeling emotional yourself? Tam, what you got?
Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I'm the one laughing. You know, just because we're the guide doesn't mean we have to like hold it all in. I think the way we model just being ourselves supports other people and helps other people be themselves.
Ditto. Rashay, listening to everyone's journey so far is refreshing and so enlightening. So grateful to take this journey with each of you. For right now, that makes me feel complete.
I'm really interested to hear people's book recommendations and retreat recommendations and different things that people are doing adjacent to this. So I don't know if people want to drop that in the WhatsApp or something, but I would love to know people's recommendations for anything forest therapy adjacent.
There is a place in the course designated for this purpose. I believe it's in the bulletin board, and it's called book recommendations. But it could be retreat recommendations or any recommendations. And you can just start putting stuff in the comments there, and that's a place that could hold all that.
Totally. And the WhatsApp is also a good place for that. Why not? Kathy, allow the process, hold the space. Your process will be refined over time. Elizabeth, just a reminder that I believe daylight savings time starts this weekend, which could affect when you attend this class. Yes, thank you. Tam, we should probably send an email reminder about that, but yes, please be aware of that time change, especially if you are outside the US. I know that's really confusing sometimes. So yeah, we'll send an email to make sure that y'all are on top of it. TJ got a lot of value from today. It's funny though, because I thought only half of the cohort joined, but apparently there were breakout rooms. Hi, everyone. Yeah. All right, so a week from today, same time, same place, we are going to dive into the standard sequence, which you've actually already started learning about through introduction, pop, and whim. But this takes us kind of from the philosophy of the practice into the structural facilitation. And so, yeah, just keeping up as best you can is awesome. And even if you're not caught up, just come on to class and you're exactly where you need to be. Rashay, if you want some help with WhatsApp, just shoot us an email, and yeah, we can troubleshoot a little bit with you.
Also, I'm guiding a walk this weekend.
Right.
So, but I will send a reminder about that. But that's this Saturday. And I will send a reminder about that and the time change for those of us who are having a time change.
Fabulous. All right, then. As always, pleasure to see you all, and we'll see you next week, or maybe on Tam's Walk. Maybe we can all unmute and say bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Hasta sábado.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Paalam.
Good night, everybody.